My name is Helen, and my journey through life has been anything but ordinary. I grew up in a typical family setup with my mom, dad, and two younger siblings, Angela and Charles. My father was an engineer, and my mother was a teacher. We lived a comfortable, albeit modest life, where the basics were covered and our needs met. However, during my sophomore year of college, our world turned upside down. I was deeply immersed in my computer programming studies, often pulling all-nighters to maintain my scholarship, when we received devastating news. My father suffered a heart attack at work and passed away before I could even reach the hospital. In the months that followed, our family struggled to adjust. My mother took on additional shifts at school and started cleaning houses on weekends to make ends meet. Witnessing her exhaustion night after night, I knew I had to take responsibility. Being the eldest, I moved back home to support Angela, who was just entering high school, and Charles, who was still in middle school. Between attending classes, I managed household duties, cooked meals, and helped with homework. It was a challenging period, juggling academic responsibilities with family obligations, but I had no other choice. College transformed from merely an academic pursuit to a lifeline for a better future for my family. I dedicated myself to mastering programming, spending extra hours in the lab, and undertaking additional projects to enhance my skills. It was during this time that I met Larry, a fellow programming enthusiast. He proposed we collaborate on a final project, a user-friendly home automation app designed not just for tech enthusiasts, but for everyday people. We spent countless days and nights coding, testing, and refining our prototype. By our senior year, our app had started to gain significant attention. One afternoon, as I returned from class, Angela handed me a message. "Some guy from Tech Horizon called about your app. They're interested in discussing acquisition opportunities," she said. That message signaled the beginning of a new chapter. After extensive negotiations, which were mostly a blur, Larry and I sold our app for a whopping $2 million. The moment the transaction was confirmed, I was overcome with emotion, shedding tears of relief and joy. The first thing I did was ensure my mother could retire from her second job. Despite her protests, I reassured her, showing her my bank account balance. "The bills are taken care of," I insisted. Her eyes widened, filled with tears of disbelief and gratitude. With the financial security from the sale, I renovated our family home, equipping it with a state-of-the-art smart home system I had custom designed. "Just speak your needs, and the house responds," I explained to my mom, demonstrating how the lights, temperature, music, and even security systems worked seamlessly through voice commands. As she watched in awe, the environment adjusting with just a few words, she murmured, "This is like magic." I smiled, correcting her gently, "It's technology, Mom. And I've covered everything, internet, maintenance, all of it. Just enjoy it." For the first time since my father's passing, I saw genuine relaxation in my mom's expression. She no longer had to manage everything on her own. Simple voice commands now took care of the vacuuming, and dinner was on its way to being prepared. This new chapter wasn't just about technological innovation. It was about restoring peace and simplicity to the family life that had once been disrupted by tragedy. After graduation, Larry and I chose different paths. While Larry invested his portion of our joint savings into a gaming startup, I ventured into the world of smart home technology by founding my own company. The initial phase was grueling, with long hours and constant stress. The fear of failure was real, especially since many startups did not survive their first year. However, the thought of failing was not an option for me as my family depended on me. Over time, my company began to flourish. Within 3 years, we expanded to 21 employees and developed several successful products, including an advanced integrated smart home system. This system was an evolution of the initial project Larry and I had begun. I moved into a modest apartment downtown near my office and bought a reliable, unassuming car. My earnings were primarily reinvested into the business or went towards supporting my family. I set up automatic payments to ensure my mother, Angela, and Charles had everything they needed. Life became more routine, and I started to enjoy the challenges of running a tech company. My family adapted to the new financial stability, each in their way. My mother, having worked tirelessly for years, relished her new role as a housewife. She would excitedly show me the latest changes to her home decor or a new recipe she had tried during my weekly visits. However, Angela and Charles struggled more with the transition. Both started college, but dropped out within a year. When I expressed my concerns, Charles pointed out that not everyone aspired to be a workaholic. His words stung, but I restrained myself and instead provided them with apartments and a monthly stipend of $3,000 each, plus covering their rent, to give them time to find their footing. As time passed, Angela and Charles remained stagnant. Angela hopped between retail jobs, while Charles mostly played video games and slept in. At our monthly dinners, I urged them to seek stable employment, reminding them that I couldn't support them indefinitely, especially once I started my own family. They would agree to look for jobs, but nothing changed. I realized that by making life too easy for them, I inadvertently discouraged their independence. Meanwhile, my mother began hinting at wanting a country house for her 60th birthday, casually showing me listings of beautiful homes ideal for summer gatherings. While I responded politely, I made no promises, though she seemed to interpret my non-committal replies as encouragement. One early spring evening, as I sat in my apartment going through work emails, I pondered the complexities of family dynamics and financial responsibilities. The journey of building my business and supporting my family was filled with both rewards and challenges, shaping not just my career but also my relationships with those closest to me. As I realized that my mother's 60th birthday was only a month away, I felt a surge of inspiration to organize something truly memorable for her. That evening, I set up a group chat with my siblings, Angela and Charles, and shared my idea of celebrating at a high-end restaurant. I asked if they were on board. Angela replied almost immediately, expressing concerns about the cost, while Charles mentioned he had a gaming tournament that weekend but would attend. Their typical responses didn't surprise me, but they did make me sigh with a mix of disappointment and resolve. "Fine, I'll handle everything," I texted back. Over the next few weeks, I poured my energy into planning the perfect birthday bash. I chose the city's most prestigious restaurant, known for its exquisite harbor views and private dining area. I carefully selected a menu featuring all of Mom's favorite dishes and ordered a custom-made cake. But the highlight was arranging for Mom's cousins from New Mexico and her college roommate from Miami to come. Knowing how much she missed them, I covered their travel and accommodation expenses. The anticipation of her reaction to these reunions added excitement to my meticulous preparations. The celebration day was a picture of perfection. The restaurant was beautifully decorated, the candlelit ambience adding a warm glow to the private room. Mom's reaction upon seeing her old friends was worth every effort. Her joyous surprise was a clear sign that the evening was special. As the night unfolded, we enjoyed delicious food and shared laughter over stories from Mom's past, including some hilarious episodes recounted by her colleagues and the nostalgic family photos her cousins brought. Watching Mom so happy made the extensive planning feel worthwhile. When it was time for presents, Charles presented a digital photo frame, explaining that he and Angela had loaded it with family pictures. Mom was visibly moved by their gift. I knew the frame was inexpensive and that Angela probably did most of the work, but Mom's genuine delight was what mattered. Then it was my turn. I stood with a glass in hand, ready to highlight the effort I'd put into the evening. "Mom, for your birthday, I wanted to create something meaningful. So I planned this party and flew in Aunt Samantha, Uncle Tyler, and Deborah to ensure this night was filled with love and joy. All of this celebration in the city's best restaurant surrounded by loved ones, is my gift to you." I expected an emotional thank you, but instead, Mom's expression shifted from joy to displeasure. A heavy silence fell as she stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "I appreciate the thoughts from Angela and Charles," she began, her tone sharp. "But I am disappointed that my eldest thinks this is a gift. It's just a party, Helen. What I wanted, as I've mentioned, was the country house. I've told everyone that's what you'd give me today." The room fell into an uneasy quiet, whispers circulating among the guests. I was stunned, my heart sinking. "Mom, I never promised a house. This party, flying everyone in, was my gift to you, planned with love and care, I replied, trying to keep composed. Mom's response, sharp and dismissive, echoed in the now tense room. Anyone can organize a dinner, Helen. That's not a real gift. The misunderstanding was clear, and as murmurs grew around us, I felt a mix of frustration and sadness. Despite my efforts to create a memorable night, it seemed overshadowed by unmet expectations I hadn't even known were set. This moment was a stark reminder of the complex dynamics that often lay under the surface of familial relationships. The confrontation at the party left me stunned and deeply hurt. As my mother hissed accusations of selfishness, claiming I had embarrassed her in front of her friends for not gifting her a house, the room filled with heavy silence. Her words cut deep, especially after all I had invested in organizing this special event for her. I've put all my resources into my business, I tried to explain, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. But before I could finish, she threw her napkin at me, her words biting. You're clueless and stupid. I don't want you here. You've ruined everything. Get out. The guests' faces registered shock and disbelief, yet Angela and Charles sat frozen, offering no words of support. Feeling isolated and overwhelmed, I muttered a feeble fine, grabbed my purse and walked out, my legs shaking so violently I nearly stumbled. Once outside, my hands trembled too much to even unlock my car. Defeated, I called a taxi, collapsing into the back seat where I finally allowed the tears to flow. That night, I turned off my phone to shut out the world. As I lay on my couch, I felt a profound sense of disillusionment wash over me. How could my family treat me this way after all I had done for them? It was as if my sacrifices and efforts meant nothing. The next morning, when I turned on my phone, it was flooded with messages and missed calls. Angela and Charles blamed me, saying I should have just given Mom what she wanted. Mom herself dared to say she would forgive me if I bought her the country house, even attaching a listing to a lavish $800,000 property. I was dumbfounded by their entitlement. In a moment of frustration, I hurled my phone across the room, narrowly missing the window. Are they serious? I shouted into the silence of my apartment. For the next few days, I was a ghost of myself at work, distracted and disheartened. One evening, alone in the office, I began to tally up everything I had contributed financially to my family since my father's death. The monthly allowances, rent, utilities, and countless other expenses added up to over $12,000 each month. It dawned on me that my generosity might have done more harm than good. Angela was 28 and Charles 26. They should have been building their lives, yet they relied on me as a safety net, doing just enough to get by. Mom had shifted from gratitude to entitlement, seeing my support not as a gift but as a due right. The smart home system I had installed for her, once a marvel, was now just another expectation. This realization was a painful epiphany. I had been enabling their dependency, not fostering their independence. They had no reason to strive for more when I was there to cushion every fall. It was clear that something had to change. I needed to redefine the boundaries of my support, not just for my financial health, but for their personal growth as well. As difficult as it would be, I knew that for us all to thrive truly, they needed to learn to stand on their own. At that moment, I decided it was time for a drastic change. Opening my laptop, I composed an email to my mother. It was direct and uncompromising. I have given serious thought to what occurred at your birthday celebration. I want to be clear that I will not be purchasing a country house for you. Not now, not ever. This topic is off the table. Furthermore, I am ending all financial support immediately. You will need to manage on your own from this point forward. I sent the email before I could second-guess my decision. Next, I called the internet provider and canceled the service to my mother's house. Without the internet, the smart home system, which included automatic blinds, voice-activated appliances, and a security system, would cease to function. It all depended on a connection to my company's servers. One by one, I then canceled all automatic transfers to my family's accounts and removed myself as the responsible party for the utility payments at my mother's house. Each action felt like lifting a heavy burden off my shoulders. The backlash was swift and severe. My phone rang incessantly. When I blocked their numbers, they resorted to showing up at my apartment building. "Miss Marshall, your mother is here again," the building's concierge would inform me. I instructed him not to let her up and emailed him photos of my family, directing him to deny them entry under any circumstances. It was a harsh measure, but necessary. I altered my daily routes and became extra vigilant about my privacy. Despite the emotional turmoil, part of me felt liberated, free from the constant pressure and demands of my family for the first time in many years. About a week later, I received a call from Aunt Samantha. I hesitated, suspecting another manipulation, but curiosity got the better of me. "Helen, I just wanted to check on you," she began, her voice conveying concern. She disagreed with how my mother had treated me, offering a much-needed perspective that affirmed my decisions. Grateful for her understanding, I asked how everyone was coping. Samantha explained that without the internet, all the smart technology in my mother's house had stopped working. A local company couldn't fix it as the tech was proprietary. My mother had no choice but to sell the equipment at a loss and replace it with regular appliances, which was an expensive ordeal. Curious, I asked about Angela and Charles. Samantha shared that they had moved back with my mother, unable to afford their apartments, but both were now working full-time. This news was a silver lining. It seemed that my tough love approach might be fostering some independence after all. I hung up feeling a mix of relief and vindication. Sitting on my balcony that evening, wine glass in hand, I watched the city lights flicker to life as dusk enveloped the skyline. I realized how long I had carried my family's needs and problems, neglecting my freedom and peace. There was guilt, undoubtedly, but beneath it was profound relief. In the months that followed, I immersed myself in work, launched a new product line, and even started seeing someone new. Life felt different, lighter, and filled with possibilities. The break from my family had not only given me a chance to focus on my own life, but had also, surprisingly, propelled them towards taking responsibility for theirs. As difficult as the decision had been, it was proving to be the right one. Despite severing financial ties with my family, I hadn't completely isolated myself from news about them. Aunt Samantha, the occasional bearer of updates, provided me with insights that I both dreaded and anticipated. During one call, she mentioned that Angela and Charles had sold the luxury cars I had bought them, a Mercedes and a sporty convertible. It wasn't surprising. They probably needed the cash. "Are they both working full-time now?" I inquired. Samantha confirmed that Charles was employed at an electronics store in the mall, and Angela had secured a stable job at a boutique. However, they were still living with Mom, unable to afford places of their own. A twinge of guilt surfaced, but I quickly reminded myself that this was necessary for their growth. They needed to stand on their own, not remain in perpetual dependence. Curious, asked about Mom. Samantha's response made me brace myself. "She's been talking about suing you for promised gifts and financial abandonment." My heart skipped a beat at the absurdity, but thankfully, Angela and Charles had dissuaded her, pointing out the futility and potential waste of money. The next day at work, my assistant informed me that Angela was at the office, insisting on seeing me. My stomach tightened. "What does she want?" I asked, though I feared I already knew. She wouldn't say, just that it's urgent. I instructed my assistant to tell her I was unavailable, buried in meetings all day. Checking the security footage later, I saw Angela had changed from her usual designer attire to simple jeans and a plain sweater. She argued briefly with the receptionist before leaving. The sight sparked a fleeting pang of regret, but I steeled myself against it. Yielding now would only revert us back to our old, unhealthy dynamics. That evening, I met my boyfriend Frank for dinner. He was a software developer I'd met at a tech conference, intelligent and ambitious, yet his warmth balanced my sometimes clinical approach to life. Over dinner, I shared the day's events and Aunt Samantha's updates. Frank listened intently, then asked, "Do you think you made the right call, cutting them off completely?" I pondered his question, reflecting on the disrespect and entitlement I had endured. "They didn't respect me, Frank. They saw me as an ATM, not a person with feelings and limits. My mother threw a napkin at me in a public restaurant because I wouldn't buy her a house. He nodded in agreement, understanding the extremity of their actions. Sometimes I do feel sorry for them, I confessed, especially when I hear they're struggling. But then I remember how they treated me, and I know I made the right decision. Frank reached across the table, offering his hand in support. For what it's worth, I think you did too. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones. In the weeks that followed, I poured my energy into my company. We were developing a new commercial application for my smart home technology, aiming to revolutionize office buildings and retail spaces. The project consumed me in the best way possible, providing a fulfilling distraction from family woes. I also spent more time with Frank, whose understanding and support became invaluable. Though he grew up in a close-knit family and occasionally struggled to understand my complete break from mine, he never judged me. Over the next month, messages from Angela and even Charles trickled in, but I approached them with a new perspective, fortified by my decisions and the new life I was building with Frank's support. Having decided to sever financial ties with my family, I felt a mixture of relief and inevitable sadness. The incoming messages from Angela and Charles piled up, but I deleted them without opening them. Whether they sought reconciliation, forgiveness, or simply more money, I wasn't ready to engage. Perhaps I never would be. Aunt Samantha kept me updated. She mentioned that my mother had started a part-time job as a receptionist to supplement her income, her first real job in years. Mom complained incessantly about having to work at her age. She's 60, I remarked during one of our calls, pointing out that many people work well into their 60s and 70s. I know that, and you know that, but your mother seems to think she's entitled to retire early on someone else's dime, Samantha replied. Her words hit home, underscoring the pervasive sense of entitlement that had strained our family dynamics. This entitlement was the root of all our problems. My family had grown accustomed to living off my success, my money, my constant support, none of which they had earned, yet all of which they felt entitled to. By cutting them off, I hadn't just forced them to stand on their own financially, I had challenged their deep-seated belief that they deserved to be taken care of simply because we were related. 7 months after the birthday party debacle, I encountered Charles in a coffee shop near my office. He looked different, his hair was cut short, and he wore a store uniform with a name tag. Our eyes met, and there was a brief, awkward pause before he acknowledged me with a small nod and quickly turned away. I left the shop silently. There was nothing to say. Any words would have felt hollow. That evening, as I looked through old family photos from before our father passed away, before money and expectations had complicated our relationships, I saw our genuine smiles, the simple joy of being together. It made me wonder if we could ever return to something resembling that version of our family. Probably not, I admitted to myself. Too much had happened, too many hurtful words had been exchanged. Yet, strangely, I was at peace with this realization. I had built a fulfilling life for myself, a thriving company, a promising relationship, and friendships with people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. This new chapter, marked by independence and personal growth, felt right. For the first time in years, I experienced true freedom, freedom from obligation, freedom from guilt, and freedom from the exhausting responsibility of supporting 3 adults who should have been capable of supporting themselves. This newfound independence wasn't just about setting boundaries with my family, it was about rediscovering who I was when I wasn't defined by those obligations. As difficult as the journey had been, it was shaping me into someone stronger, more confident, and genuinely content.